Your Cleveland Cavaliers move to a record of 33-21. They trade for Caris LeVert, and the trade deadline for the NBA is Thursday, February 10th. You're locked in here with Cavs Encapsulated, episode 16. Let's get right into it. Welcome back out to the channel. Before we get started and in depth with this episode, please take a second to hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. It's totally free. If you can't stand the content, you can always unsubscribe later. Turn on your notifications and so you never miss a live stream or a video, and make sure that you comment below. What do you like about the show? What do you dislike about the show? Video ideas, constructive criticism, everything is appreciated, and we will get back to you. Some advertising things. We have videos in the works, live streams in the works. We have the Cavs three-way fantasy live stream where your three faithful will be drafting anybody who played in a Cavs uniform, but the rule is that it's them at their peak. So it could be Dwayne Wade at their peak, Shaq at their peak. That's going to be really fun.
Shaq at their peak.
We have mid-season awards 2.0. We need to update that, of course, with Ricky Rubio going out the door. He was the early front runner for the sixth man of the year, so that has to change. Yep. And because of recent Twitter discussions I've gotten into, we're going to try to do a Cavs jersey tier list. So every single uniform that the Cleveland Cavaliers have worn since we've been alive, I think is how we're going to do it. Yeah. We're going to try to collectively rank it as a group. That should be fun. If you missed this last week of basketball, the Cavs lost to the Rockets. Then they beat the Hornets, and then they beat the Pacers. We're going to start with opening initial thoughts. Justin, how are you doing, and how did you feel about this week of Cavs basketball?
It was interesting. Obviously, still out Darius Garland through those three games, as you mentioned. Seeing a little bit of a side effect there, and obviously a little bit of a need to go out and make a trade like we did. If you guys have if you guys aren't in the know, Caris LeVert, new Cavalier after a trade that sent Ricky Rubio and a first and second round pick over to the Pacers for him. Obviously, it's been an up and down week. I think more up because I wasn't expecting us to beat the Hornets down Garland, and we were very good in that game. And then picking up a win against the Pacers in a very odd fashion, which was a good way to cap off that day with the Caris LeVert trade. So interesting week for sure.
Logan, how about you? Has this been talk Darius Garland not being there and how impressive it's been to not have him and still win?
The Cavaliers played well enough, I think, this week, more than anything. They're holding their position right now in that the top dogs of the Eastern Conference, despite losing Garland. Things weren't pretty. Even though the Pacers win was ugly, aside from that fourth quarter, it was really ugly. Charlotte really had some nice things going, but I think even when we were up 17, I texted you guys, this game's going to come down to the final possession. Just kind of felt that way that, without Garland, it's hard to close a team like Charlotte out, and they did. The Rockets win, or loss rather, was obviously very disappointing. It was something I kind of saw coming, especially being down who we were down. But they played well enough to keep their head above water and continue to keep pace. And that's what really matters. Like I said, 6 seed. That's what really the Cavaliers need. And this past week, like I said, didn't have the prettiest wins, but they spaced themselves some more from the number 7 seed, and that's really what matters.
Yes, you do bring up that good point of the spacing in the Eastern Conference becoming a little bit more defined, not as appropriate as we would like it, I think, at the end of the day, but it's something that will be monitored, of course, for the rest of the season. But a little bit of a correction here, because I believe in the last live stream, I stated that Caris LeVert was going to be on an expiring deal at the end of this year, and it's come to my attention that this was incorrect. I was wrong on this. We actually have him for the 2022-2023 season, with close to him making $19 million. Of course, that being a big part of any trade, the salary swap, basically why we had to ship Ricky Rubio out. And the only reason that Indiana could get the trade to really work with us is because of the Ricky Rubio contract. But there's already been reports that have come out that Kobe is in talks with LeVert's, team in a potential extension. I think that could be interesting. And Justin brought up a good point that I want him to kind of expand upon, in the sense that, can we pay LeVert and Sexton? Is it going to be one or the other, or is it going to be one of these situations where we see how good LeVert plays down the stretch this year and then make a decision?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Caris LeVert has a very interesting story. Obviously, he dealt with cancer for a while there, and that trade to the Pacers, they found it in the physical, which was crazy enough to hear. But he's also had to deal with a lot of injuries, and I think that has to play a huge part in what you're considering with making an extension with him. I wouldn't want to get an extension done before the end of this season, before the Cavs are done playing, because I got to know if this guy is going to make it through the rest of the season, postseason. Mm-hmm. And then, I got to evaluate, what's the deal? Is he actually a huge improvement over Colin Sexton, who I've been practically comparing him to for the most part since we traded for him, since we've been talking about trading for him. And so for me, it's going to be one of those scenarios where you could really go into this offseason and practically have the same situation you had last offseason with Colin Sexton, where he's going into his final year of an expiring contract and he has the option to be extended, but they might just wait for his, either for that final season to happen to extend him, or at least see what happens with Colin Sexton first. So a lot of moving pieces, obviously, to keep an eye out here, but it's definitely something to monitor in the sense of his play and his impact on this team.
And, not only his impact and his play on this team, but I think another thing I have to keep an eye on is his health, because he's been a little injury prone. I mean, we'll put the cancer aside, the situation he went through there. He hasn't been a very healthy player in the last few years. Colin Sexton, aside from this major injury, really has been on the floor pretty much every game since he was drafted by the Cavs. So you have to monitor that situation and see how it plays out, because if a guy can't be on the floor, he can't make an impact. And obviously we've seen that this year, especially this year with our injuries, with COVID and things like that. He's got to be a healthy player as much as he can. So I guess it also comes down to JB Bickerstaff. What's the right minutes to play him? What's overexerting him? What's using him too much? I think when he finds that balance, that'll be good. But the thing I really like about Caris LeVert, his first media availability today, he said all the right things. He talked about how he grew up a Cavs fan, never thought he'd actually play for Cleveland. And he thought maybe I'd never even make the NBA, but here he is. That's awesome to see. He said he's really excited to be back home and play in front of these fans. He has a newfound energy, he said, coming here to Cleveland.
And that's just sometimes how it goes. You move spots, you find someone who maybe doesn't work in one location, works in another. I think Ricky Rubio was a big example of that earlier in the year. And kind of keeping on this topic, we're going to go to our first clip reaction. We actually have two this week, and of course a new segment with Justin, collaborating with me. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to go first clip reaction, and then I'm going to go back around. We're going to start with Logan after this clip.
Every time out. Redick just picked up his first personal foul. Approaching 8 to play. Good screen. LeVert with a floater inside for Allen.
So I tweeted this out. If you're not following us over at Pulse Cleveland on Twitter, make sure you do that, because you get to see all this cool stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit beforehand. But it was a video of Caris LeVert highlights while they were playing, the Brooklyn Nets were playing the Philadelphia 76ers. I believe that's 2019 playoffs, because the bubble was 20, last year was 21. So it was pre-bubble. But that chemistry is really what has gotten me excited about the LeVert trade. I didn't know that those clips even existed. I've never seen that highlight reel before. And kind of put this inside, Logan, with Jarrett Allen not being elected through the commissioner to the All-Star game. Of course, we know LaMelo Ball and DeJounte Murray have been the replacements. 2 guards to replace 2 bigs. So I would like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's infuriating. There goes Finn knocking over his water bowl. Give 1 second, guys.
Thirsty.
And
he's pissed. Okay. He's pissed that Adam Silver just
he's
couldn't
so
get the job
angry.
done.
Finn is pissed. Yeah, it's definitely infuriating. I feel so good for DeJounte Murray. I think LaMelo Ball definitely has a case for being in the All-Star game. I can't really be too upset about that. But at the end of the day, the commissioner clearly didn't watch the Charlotte versus Cleveland game. Clearly. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, Jarrett Allen played pissed off. He dominated. You could tell he wanted to be named an All-Star, and LaMelo Ball kind of shrunk. Didn't even play in the closing time. I think that's a game that I thought personally, after I had made my comments about, at the end of the day, I think the best player should be in the All-Star game, blah, blah, blah. That was a game where it showed Jarrett Allen and his impact versus LaMelo and his impact. And beyond that, I mean, it's just such a dominant performance by Jarrett Allen. It was back to the beginning of the season, what he was doing, really. And I think it was probably his best game of the season. I don't think anybody's really going to argue with that. I thought that game alone would have been enough to replace him into the All-Star game. I was honestly expecting him to be replaced into the All-Star game. I thought that game took LaMelo Ball out of the conversation. Clearly, I was wrong, and I know the NBA wants to get LaMelo Ball in there because he's got the bigger name, he's got the following. He's definitely a controversial, I guess, in some ways. Some people hate him, some people love him. Not many people just kind of feel whatever about him. There's always an opinion about LaMelo Ball. Jarrett Allen, people kind of feel whatever about him. They're usually happy for him. No one ever criticizes Jarrett Allen, but people don't see him as a big name. So if Adam Silver has the decision to make what's going to make me more money, it's probably that. I mean, Cleveland will love you. Cleveland will love you if you put in Jarrett Allen, but he's thinking about all 30 teams. He's thinking about fans all around. That's why he threw LaMelo Ball in, whether it was the right decision or not.
And the rationale for it's just really dumb because you took two guys that play forward out of the games and replaced them with guards. Like the East already didn't have any forwards in reserves, and they just added another one. Like you can make the argument for Murray that, yeah, they probably have a big or two over in the reserves for them, but I don't know. I didn't understand the rationale behind that.
But I bring that clip up because specifically, because I know Logan is excited for the playmaking ability, one, and two, Justin loves when that happens through Darius Garland. So I would honestly, I'm upset we have to wait till Thursday for the Cavs to play, right? They're playing
Wednesday, right?
Is it?
Or tomorrow.
2-9. Oh, yeah.
First, baby.
Okay, so we only have to wait one more day. But I'm hoping Darius is healthy. I don't know if it makes sense to play him now, maybe just ride him into the All-Star break. You're playing the Spurs, then you're at the Pacers, then you're at the 76ers, which we're going to get into predictions. Yep. But imagine Garland on the court with LeVert and Jarrett Allen. Now you have two guys who have the chemistry there that could, use that pick and roll type of mentality. The defense is going to be, I think, in shambles if Darius is healthy and is playing with LeVert next to him and Jarrett Allen down low, not even to mention Mobley. So I'm calling my shot now, expect to see that. I'm not certain if it's going to be against the Spurs because I don't really know if he's going to play a whole lot of minutes, but by the time we get to the 76ers game, it's literally funny because that clip is from a playoff series with Philadelphia. So I'm expecting over these next three games to see a LeVert lob to Jarrett Allen.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair bet. Honestly, you should lock that in and see where we're at next week.
I'm locking it in. 13-minute mark.
We should have gotten a lob counter from the beginning of the year, honestly.
There haven't been a whole lot, though. The defenses have definitely adjusted. You have to give some respect to the NBA.
Well, I think that's just because with Garland being out and kind of even with Garland being in, you don't really see the passing ability from a lot of other players on our team at the guard position. I mean, I've been sorely upset with Rondo for the lack of it. I think when he came in, that was my biggest thing is I thought he was going to at least have 10, not at least, but, get up there in assist numbers like Ricky Rubio did. So, watching that clip of the LeVert to Allen lob is great to see, and hopefully his numbers go up in that category as well to just boost us even further.
So we got one clip down. Now we're going to our newest segment. We have a new segment every week, and I couldn't find a video to pair it with, but nevertheless.
Ooh.
Jeff talks stats, Justin reacts. I think I've outdone myself with the name.
Goodness.
So I was texting you guys last night, and I said, I'm working on something new. Justin always talks about, it's a kind of a funny Cleveland Pulse meme that I try to explain stats to Justin, and it's good because he wants confusing to learn, and it's confusing for everybody. And I think the NBA is extremely difficult. it's tough to compare like the NFL and the NBA, but I mean, I just feel like the stats in NBA, specifically over recent weeks, we've talked about how good defenders might be, which isn't what this advanced metric is, but it's hard to quantify defending. It's hard to quantify like true impact, and it's a lot of eye test. But this advanced metric that I made up last night, it consists of 3 factors, and it's of course it's in my Excel sheet, but this is a test run for the community and for transparency, because I want to start doing more of this in the future, have you guys react to it, and I want feedback from the community. Is this dumb? Am I looking at the wrong stats? How should I change it? So this is 1.0 of a new advanced metric that the Cleveland Pulse is proud to sponsor, and it's called the running out of gas score. So we talk about this, who is going to have energy down the stretch as far as the playoff push, how many minutes your guys play. And the third thing here, which I think is my biggest problem already with the 1.0, is that it highly favors playoff experience. So I'm going to show you guys how it works.
All right.
Here we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Each team is assigned a.
Jeff, hold on a second. I need to put my nerd glasses on really quickly. All right, there we go. Let's take a look at these things.
So I'm going to update it every week. Each team is assigned a point number for where they are in the conference. So the Cavs are 4th, so they're 40 points. Milwaukee is 3rd, so they get 30, etc. So it's
so far.
It goes as in integrals of 10. Here I have the minutes played by the first 9 players in the rotation. I just picked like kind of a random number, and I think, if you have 4 guys off the bench in a playoff series, that's going to be like pretty good. I don't think you're going to be playing maybe 10.
Are these the guys with the from our highest amount to our lowest amount?
The top, yes. This is our first 9 minute getters. Mobley with almost 1,600 and Dean Wade with 750.
Okay.
So I add those up and I divide by 1,000. Kind of just, I wanted to keep the numbers like triple digits, double to triple digits. I don't know if that's correct either. I could divide by like 10 and maybe rework it, and then I have playoff experience. So the Cavs have 8 years of postseason experience.
Okay.
By far the lowest amount in the Eastern Conference. And I brought this up too, because we're going to talk about minutes. I'm going to throw it to Logan to talk about minutes. Brooklyn is 1st. They have 56 total years of playoff experience. Wow. Of course, Durant, Harden, LaMarcus Aldridge. Blake Griffin has as many years of playoff experience as the whole Cavs roster at the moment, as far as the first 9 players in the rotation. So this is the playoff experience coupled with the first 9 players, not the whole team, but just to keep it consistent. So how I figured the math is you add the Eastern Conference standings plus the numbers of minutes in the first 9 rotation, obviously the smaller number. And then I got this number by subtracting the number of playoff experience years by 56, because 56 is what Brooklyn has. So that's the top of the Eastern Conference right now. I did it out of 100, and I didn't like it as much. So 56 minus 8, because 56 is the most. So we have 48. The smaller the number, the better.
Okay.
So Miami is 1st, compiled with all those variables, and Toronto is 8th. And we are at 6th right now, mostly because we don't have playoff experience. Like if you look at Miami, they have a 10.821 as far as minutes.
They got a lot of guys playing.
Of course, they have 10 because they're 1st in the standings, and then they have 32 years of playoff experience. 56 minus 32 equals out to be 24. That's how you get the 44.82.
Okay.
So that might be a lot, might be a little bit confusing. I kind of have like this equation down here. The lower the score, the better. I want to hear what you guys, Justin in particular, how do you feel about this? Is it too confusing, or is it interesting to a certain point?
Well, I have to say, Jeff, I'm lost thoroughly.
He's lost.
It's interesting because the running out of gas thought process for me, it makes a lot of sense that for Miami, we looked at it, we got a quick little snippet of it that their last guy plays around 900 some minutes, has played 900 some minutes, as opposed to us where we're down by 750. That's not even including that we didn't take Ricky Rubio out of that equation, who's now gone off the roster.
And this is Bam too, so like it kind of filters in injuries like by itself.
Right. So it's really interesting. Can I go back to the overall rankings? So Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Chicago. Chicago's interesting.
Chicago surprisingly doesn't have a lot of playoff experience.
That's
They
what I
only
was
have
thinking,
12
though,
years.
because DeMar probably has all of their experience. And then who's third? Vucevic?
Vucevic has 3, Caruso has 2, and Javonte Green has 1 year.
Yeah.
But like DeRozan has 6, and the Cavs' first 9 only have 8.
But I feel like those rankings in terms of what we've seen from teams this year and what we know of the Cavs being a young roster, it kind of makes sense that we're 6. Like if we were to play it by like, hey, these are potential like Eastern Conference rankings, I feel like this is a very like you could if you didn't tell people what the records of these teams were, you would look at this and just judging off a play of this year, I think you could be realistically saying, yeah, like that's pretty on spot for where we think these teams should be. Maybe no, I think pretty on spot. I honestly really like it. Honestly.
And a lot of it has to do with like, so I'm going to update it every week, but like if the Cavs move to first, this 40 is going to turn to a 10. Right. So if the Cavs move 3 spots, our number is going to move down by 30 points, which would put us at 3. Right. You know, depending on where, and it would actually put us probably higher because Milwaukee, like Chicago would be lower than us, and, you know, Philly would be lower than us, and Milwaukee would be lower than us. So I honestly think my biggest critique with it is that it takes into account too much playoff experience, but it's like you need that down the stretch in the NBA regular season as far as like body management, you know, game management and stuff like that.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. It was fairly, cool. As far as I'm concerned, fairly easy to understand. So I think good. Logan will have more to say than I will.
What I'm confused about then, so in the 6th spot, does that mean we're running out of gas more than Miami is?
Yes, Miami is the freshest team. That's a good way to put it. I didn't explicitly say that. Okay. But like Justin is saying, Toronto like checks out. If you like Van Fleet has played almost 1,800 minutes. Like their minute score is very high, and their first 5 is ridiculously high. Like this guy's only played 500 minutes. But Logan, that's where I was going to throw it over to you. What stands out as far as our minutes played?
I mean, definitely Evan Mobley being number 1, the Rook running away with
and
it.
Garland being 2 Garland hasn't even played the last 3 games, and he's still 2.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know the other day your 3 best players are going to play your most minutes, but you have to factor in once you get to the playoffs what kind of impact that's going to take on you. I also am curious what our numbers will look like if Ricky Rubio was out, and I mean, I guess Rondo doesn't even have enough minutes to get in the top 9 yet. Right. I'm saying his playoff experience obviously would change some things as well. But yeah, definitely Mobley leading the way is kind of interesting. And Allen not far behind, and then look at that big drop off to Markkanen. I mean, almost 400 less minutes, 350 less minutes. Is that what I'm seeing?
It's crazy to think that Dean Wade is on here and Chetty Osman is not.
Yes.
Yeah, that is surprising. It was because of Jetty's COVID and stuff. He was out like, how many games in a row? It was quite a few.
Well, he had back spasms too earlier in the year that I think he was sidelined for maybe 3 or 4 games. But this is another thing, and I don't mean to keep reiterating, but it's like Okoro's minutes are only going down from here. They can't go up, and he's already played 1,100, so far, which it's not. I mean, that's a lot of minutes, honestly. So it's just, I thought this was interesting. I think that
I would like to compare Miami's big 3 of Braun, Bosch, and Wade, maybe 2012, 2013, when they were their most healthy, to the rest of the player stats on that teams, to this current year's Cavs team. Maybe even the former Cavs with Love, Irving, and LeBron. I'd like to see, roughly, maybe next week or something we compare roughly is this out of whack, or is this just what's gonna take to win? I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea, going back and maybe looking at previous finals champions and seeing. Right. I think it would be difficult to find how many minutes they played, 56 games through the season, but definitely when the season concludes, post season, I think that's
are we in good shape, right?
Yeah. So just something to think about, something for the viewers out there to think about and respond to, and say, hey, maybe use this instead of playoff experience. Use
Hey,
this.
Jeff, you're an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if that makes no sense and that's way off base, you probably have merit in that talking point. So,
or they'll be like me and their brains will be cooked and just like have steam coming out of their ears. The only reason you guys can't see mine is because of my headphones.
Totally cooked. But that's enough XL for the week. I promise. I'm going to clip reaction number 2, and we're going to start with Logan out of the video.
68-61. Rondo, Love, Osmond, Stevens, and Mobley open up this fourth quarter as Jetty Osmond. This crowd is on its feet. It is electric behind the back. Osmond's open. Oh, yeah!
Austin Carr. The passing in Austin Carr makes those clips.
Disgusting.
Oh, my God. I mean, you know what I love about that clip and what I love about that 19-0 run? Starts with the Osmond left corner triple, finishes with the Osmond left corner triple. And, I mean, I haven't seen a Cavaliers crowd like that since the playoffs, plain and simple. I mean, against Boston earlier the game you guys were at, I'm sure that was insane. But this was a crowd that was dead quiet and just kind of like it felt so dark watching that game for a little while. I don't know. They looked lethargic. They looked like almost too excited to just get to the game with LeVert that they're kind of not thinking about the Pacers game. And for them to go on that 19-0 run was absolutely absurd. Love is loving Cleveland. I mean, he is seriously in a great mood. I love watching the 3-time clap with him and Osmond. I love the chest bumps. I love him and Rondo going head to head and like yelling at each other and whatever they do. It's a blast. Those kinds of runs, the Cavalanche, as it's been coined this year, have just been incredible. I mean, every game it feels like, no, we're not quite out of this one, especially if a team goes up like in the first quarter. I really don't start fearing quite yet anymore because we have just seen these runs that are nuclear from the Cavaliers, and suddenly it's a brand new ball game in the second half.
Shout out to Curtis Wood, hops in the live stream. He summed it up perfectly. He said, I didn't clap once in the first half, and then it felt like a packed house in the second half.
We had some good guests on once I got off, guys. I mean, good guests all around, but I'm saying like we had some good conversation. I was watching back to see what I missed, and really good to see everybody come on that live stream. Just another thought, but yeah,
that's a great thought. Justin and I totally agreed, but I think that's what we're looking for in Rondo, especially that first pass. Like it's got zip on it, and he's out there. Yeah, he's making a conscious effort to get people involved.
Even the hockey assists that he does, just making sure the ball's swinging. I mean, that's what Rajon Rondo was brought here to do, and in both those clips, he's pushing right. He's getting in transition for the most part, or even in the first clip, he's making a quick decision and getting the offense and getting the ball where it needs to go.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see a rotation of LeVert and Rondo together. I feel like that will be what we see for the next 2 games, mainly because I don't know that Garland's going to come back, but it would be interesting to kind of get the scoring capability of LeVert instead of Okoro with a Rajon Rondo at like running the actual point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't even thought about. It's just now we're getting into that territory where who knows what the rosters or the rotation is going to be. Rather, you saw this down the stretch in Indiana. It was Rondo,
Stevens, Osmond, Love, and Mobley. I don't know who.
I don't even know who it was. It was a little bit of Mobley, and I think it was a little bit of JA, but it was I did not expect, even when we got Rondo, that Rondo, Love, and Jetty, let alone throwing in Lamar Stevens, was going to work out on the court together. And it's, in spurts, it's just like in baseball, they say hitting is contagious. Like if one person gets a hit, the next person gets a hit. Like that's how these big, 2-out rallies work and stuff, how you score a lot of runs in baseball. I've seen it half a dozen times at least, if not more, with this Cavs team, where one guy gets hot and then it's like Kevin Love doesn't care. He's just pulling up. It's going in. And we saw that with the Indiana game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, good overall conversation. We're going to go a little bit shorter this week for episode 16. Of course, we've got a lot of content. If you haven't seen our live streams, go back and watch them. They're definitely a blast. And we are already going to get into upcoming game predictions. We have the standings right here. I think it's everybody's favorite part of the show, at least us three. So here's the standings. I need to put like games back and stuff next to it. But Logan at the top. 2-game lead over Justin
for a while now.
Logan has. Have you ever not been in first?
Not since we started keeping track.
Since we started keeping track. I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like I have been taking a lot of L's lately. I used to have a little more distance in the win-loss column, but
Logan, I think it was like
these are complicated right now with injuries and stuff. It's hard to predict.
Logan, I think it was 2 weeks back that me and you went on the streaking. Streaking run, and we both had the same exact predictions, so I gained nothing on you. And it was just a funny little meme that just never came to fruition.
That's the problem with this though, because I'm lacking behind, so I can't really talk. But it's like it's going to be tough to make. It's tougher to make up 4 games than it looks, because you say the same things.
You were so good last week, outside of the fact that you could not have predicted that we would trade for LeVert.
I know.
We wouldn't know that Garland is still not back, but
I had the Houston and Indiana games mixed up. But this week, I still think is interesting because I think we have an even keel game tomorrow against San Antonio at home, which Logan is going to start with. But then we're going to Indiana, which, I mean,
the new Indiana team that we did not play.
Who knows what to think about that game, really, because I thought we were going to play much better than we did, especially in the first half. The last game against the Pacers ended up still winning, which was great, of course. And then we were on the road, first action against Joel Embiid and the 76ers, I believe, on the season. So that's going to be interesting. Logan, we get the Spurs tomorrow. DeJounte Murray, is he going to be playing inspired because he made the All-Star game, or how do you feel that shakes out for the Cavs?
I think the Cavaliers end up with a W. I think people are expecting Caris LeVert to score 20 tomorrow. I guess I wouldn't count on it. In the history that I've seen, anytime we kind of make a move or sign somebody, they usually kind of have a pretty rough debut. Kyle Korver, J.R. Smith, just to name literally 2 off the top of my head. Channing Frye, people were like, why on earth do we give Anderson Varejao for that? I think it always takes a little bit for some guys to come in. I think, though, having LeVert out there, and I think he's going to play inspired basketball to really earn his minutes. I think defensively he might even start taking a step up. I think tomorrow is going to be a win, especially because the big thing we had a problem with in San Antonio was the Spurs shooting. I mean, Bryn Forbes was lighting us up. He's no longer in San Antonio. I think that's a bigger name than we actually are giving credit for as far as, how the game could go tomorrow. Even down Garland, I think, at home in front of our Cleveland faithful in a LeVert debut, I think we still walk out with a win, even if LeVert maybe doesn't put up the best performance.
Okay, so then I guess it goes to me. I will agree that we beat San Antonio. Like I said, I think that's the most even keel game where we just, even without Darius, it's like we have favorable matchups. And unless it is the 9th, tomorrow is the 9th, unless DeJounte Murray is really upset with his situation in San Antonio, which I have no evidence to believe that to be the case, but that's your last chance kind of to get out of that situation. If he wants to compete now and he wants to go absolutely atomic and kind of beat us single-handedly, I think that's probably the only way we lose. So I'm going with a W as well.
Okay, is Garland going to be back for an all-star matchup? I've been wanting to see it. I wanted to see it with the Hornets game. I didn't get it.
Yeah, last time Garland and Murray went head-to-head, it was a show.
It was a show.
Yep.
We have seen it. They just weren't officially all-stars at that point. Do I take the unnecessary risk of calling this a W? And
that would not be a risk, I don't think.
I don't think so.
I don't want to.
We've all said you. So the only way you could make up, or the only way you could improve is if you say loss.
Man, oh man,
I dare you.
I don't know, man. The Spurs are up and down. Murray, he has my respect, but I don't think he can do it all against us. And I'll give this win to the Cavs. It's at home too, so
I'm hoping we
weak, right?
I'm hoping we could keep playing good at the Rock because that would be nice. But Logan, back to you at Indiana, 2-11-22. That would be Friday.
Our biggest problems against Indiana was DeMontis Sabonis, and he's apparently a Sacramento King now.
Apparently.
What on earth is going on in Sacramento?
No idea.
And Indiana.
So they bring in Tyrese Halliburton, they bring in Buddy Hield. Finn, stop playing with your bull. Tyrese Halliburton, I feel like could definitely do a little something to us. Buddy Hield has been pretty good against us in the past.
Are they going to be ready, though?
Turner might not even play. Might not be in the roster by that time. I think there's too much turnaround on that team for them to come together at home. Here's the real question. Garland, he's either going to play 2 games or he's going to play no games.
I agree.
Back for the
that's
one.
What I haven't pegged for.
Isn't worth it, right? So I predict he probably still doesn't play this one. But I think LeVert back in Indiana immediately. I mean,
Revenge game.
Kind of.
Hopefully he goes off on the guys that were in our chat trying to tell us off.
I mean, Indiana's probably also pissed though because they blew a big old lead to us. But I'm gonna go ahead and take the Cavaliers. I know that was long-winded, but I'm gonna take 2-0 right now in the week.
I'm going another dub. I think this is the biggest. I think this is the best win on this 3-gamer for a couple reasons. Because we play tomorrow, so we play the 9th. We're going to have off on the 10th, which it'll be a travel day. But I like when we're 1 day is in between. So we're going to play on Friday, and I think it'll be commanding victory.
We're going streaking. We're going streaking. I got this as a win. This one's easy for me. Win. The next game's the one that we got to talk about.
This one is really interesting.
This is the big implication game.
It is. Logan, you get to start on big implications.
If Garland was playing, I really think I'd give us the win.
Is he going to play, though?
Probably not.
What if he plays that game only?
I think
out the next game after that.
I think Caris LeVert.
Should we throw the Hawks game in here just really quickly? I mean, we'll have another. I mean, that'll be one game before the All-Star break.
You might as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Logan, take that into consideration. I didn't want you to make a prediction without having that in consideration.
All right. The Sixers. This one's tough because I think LeVert gives us such an edge that we didn't have before. Just another scorer that a team has to worry about that people really aren't giving enough credit. I think if we had Garland and LeVert, I'd say dub. It's in Philly, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. It's a back-to-back. So we play Friday, play Saturday.
Back-to-back.
Yeah, and the Sixers are playing such good basketball. It's second night of a back-to-back. I think I'm going to take the loss here. I really think if we had Garland back, though, I would take a dub even on a back-to-back. But I'm going to lock in as a loss. God, geez. Every day we have these things, just stress mounts over me for I have 3 minutes left, guys. I have to go in, unfortunately, soon. Should I give my Atlanta prediction?
Yeah, give your Atlanta prediction.
Atlanta, we're at Atlanta?
We're at Atlanta. Yeah. Tuesday, 3-day break.
Hawks are playing some much better basketball as of late. Trae Young has been good. It just, again, totally depends on Garland. In Atlanta, with LeVert now, and if Garland happens to play then, I think I'm going to say win. I'm going to go 3 in 1 week. I could see the Sixers and the Hawks games being flipped. I do think the first 2 are pretty well set in stone, but I'll go 3 in 1 week for the Cavaliers. And if I go 2 and 2, I still have a game on Justin, so I'm all good.
That's smart. That's playing it smart. I'm going to say we lose to the 76ers, and I'm going to say we lose to the Hawks to wrap it up.
Ooh, I'm getting 2 games on Jeff.
I can understand it.
I'm going streaking this whole week. 4 games in a row. Beat the Sixers. Beat the Hawks. I've been talking about this with Jeff. I say Garland comes back for the 76ers game and the Hawks game because those are the 2 most important games going into the All-Star break. Those are the 2 most important games.
And honestly, Justin, I don't think it's a bold prediction. I was very close to saying 4-0 week as well.
I'll get my game back on you, Logan.
4 great wins going to the All-Star break, man. But we're in a good spot. I'll take what a week we get out as long as, we don't really blow it here. But hopefully Garland gets back soon. I'll say that much.
Absolutely. Same here, man.
4 big ones before the All-Star break. It's been Cavs Encapsulated, episode 16. Like I said at the top, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, say, what we could do better, what we could do in the future. Hit that bell notification for future notifications of live streams, videos going live every Tuesday. And before we see you again, as always, make sure, let them know.